It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Paysen.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Paysen, who is with the Pittsburgh Steelers as the brand ambassador. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Brandon. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to work in professional sports?
Yeah, absolutely. So, professional sports has always excited me due to the atmosphere that it provides. I love the fan interactions and being able to create an exciting and memorable experience. Also, being able to be that first helping hand to anyone in need is something that gives me great satisfaction. So, working for the Pittsburgh Steelers was a no-brainer for me. I go to school outside of Pittsburgh at Seton Hill University, and the brand ambassador job was given up to college students that wanted to actively get into professional sports career. So,
What
yeah.
was it like whenever you got your role as the Pittsburgh Steelers brand ambassador?
Yeah, so my first day working for the Pittsburgh Steelers was at their training camp at St. Vincent, and we had a pep talk from our boss. And right away, we were held to a very high standard of customer service. My boss pushed us to act as if we were Disney employees. That we wanted to provide a Disney-like experience for anyone going to a Steelers game or Steelers training camp. So their time spent with us should be just as memorable as them going to Disneyland. This is something that stuck out to me greatly. I don't think any job preaches this type of service, and it's a really easy analogy to use, to set that bar. So that Disney-like service was something that really stuck out to me the first day that I worked for them.
What are your roles and responsibility as the brand ambassador?
Yeah, so a brand ambassador represents the front lines of the Pittsburgh Steelers fan engagement and promotes a once in a lifetime experience for fans. Again, the bar was set at Disney like service by our management for any event that we were attentive to. So this was training camp, game days. We also did like Gatorade children's camps, stuff like that. For our game day operations, we'd do activations for different brand sponsored areas. So if we had PepsiCo or Ford or Nickelodeon and FedEx even was our biggest person to come in, we would have to set up their booths, make sure everything was running correctly, making sure that they had all their materials, and making sure that the fans had easy access and knew where everything was and how everything was going on. So we also were responsible for the oversight of the Steelers experience interactive areas. So that was like Steelers Nation Unite. We had to know everything about the app, everything about the Steelers game promotions for that day. If there was a themed game, we had to, know the ins and outs of what the theme was or any promotions that we were doing that day, stuff like that. So also taking waivers for any interactive area. One of the coolest things that we got to do, so our jobs rotated with this position. We had about 25 employees with the Pittsburgh Steelers brand ambassadors. All these 25 kids were college students that were, seeking professional careers in sports. But we'd rotate positions from working VIP tent areas, Steelers Nation Unite tents, to inside the stadium at Steelers Nation Unite tents, to even people they'd call it the terrible towel flag outside. So we'd have to organize fans and escort them out onto the field and for them to shake the terrible towel for pregame. So just a lot of really cool interactive stuff and mainly operations oriented work that we had to do for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Also, halftime shows were a big deal for the brand ambassadors. We did all of the halftime shows for every themed game. So, like the ones where we represented all the branches of military, we would escort these military members, Air Force, Marines, Army, Navy, out onto the field, and National Guard out onto the field to do a fun, like relay race style football game during halftime. That was one of the coolest things I think we had were able to do.
That's amazing. Of course, what is a typical game day like as the brand ambassador?
Yeah, so as a brand ambassador on game days, we would show up. If it was a 12 o'clock game, show up right at 8 a.m. So Art Rooney Avenue, if you guys are familiar with it, is shut down during game day, and that's where all the outside attractions are held. We have merchandise tents, our VIP areas were being set up. We also have a bunch of jerseys that we had to wheel out from the stadium that were there for like photo op opportunities. We had these big Nike gloves that sit like this, that people would take pictures on. All of this had to be set up by the brand ambassadors. So we had help from the stadium workers if there's stuff that was too heavy, but the majority of this equipment was all brought out and set up by our brand ambassadors. We had to set this up 2 hours before Art Rooney Avenue opened. So if a 12 o'clock game if a 1 o'clock game was going on, we'd have to have everything set up by 11, and then Art Rooney Avenue would be open to the public. All of our tents would be open to the public. All of the of course, everything for the fans to be engaged with would be open at 11. So from 8 to 11, we were in setup mode doing that. And then from 11 to 1 o'clock till kickoff, we were in like showtime. Like we had to be on our best behavior, best forms of service, interacting with people, making sure everything went smooth. And then after kickoff, once the ball's up in the air, everything on Art Rooney Avenue needed to be cleaned up immediately. And then once Art Rooney Avenue was cleaned up, we'd take probably 15 volunteers to run whatever halftime show we were doing that day, but everyone else was sent home or allowed to go back into the game after that. So we had no post-game obligations, just pre-game setup, pre-game teardown. And then if we had to stay around for a halftime show, we would.
Of course, as you talked about the gloves being out, are the gloves normally like out after season?
No, so those gloves are super expensive. We actually one of the jobs of a brand ambassador, if you were rotated to this position, you had to be the person to tell people that, hey, don't sit on the gloves. That was a role of a brand ambassador, but that was definitely needed because these were, each hand I think was over. It cost $20,000. I'm pretty sure $15,000 to $20,000 for each hand, and they're just made out of compressed styrofoam. So if you got a big person sitting on that thumb, that's $20,000 down the drain. And that's it doesn't seem like that important of a job, but if you're supervising that very expensive piece, so it really was. But yeah, after the game, those gloves are brought back inside. They can't be out and pretty rigorous. I mean, they're just expensive pieces of art for the Steelers.
What is something that you learned now that you didn't know before becoming the Steelers brand ambassador?
I would go back to what I said in the beginning, just with the level of service or the bar that was set for us to be at. I learned, how to interact with fans on the best, like I'd say the most efficient way. If you saw a frantic fan, you could get them help as soon as you could, or if you saw someone lost, how to interact with someone just by reaching out saying, hey, do you need some help? All of these little like nuances of service that were taught to us by our boss were extremely helpful to the role that I want to play in my future career. Just like that Disney like service, I would say that bar was really important.
Who is some players that you have met over your time with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Players I've met and interacted with, not too many that I've had certain conversations with, but a lot of them that I've had to work with. One was actually Ben Roethlisberger on my first day of work. We are told that our paychecks say Steelers, their paychecks say Steelers, and we can't fangirl over any of these people. But one interaction I had with Ben Roethlisberger, my very first day of training camp, I was sent up into the office to go grab a box of waters for our team, the ambassador team, and I'm walking past this guy. This guy is huge. He's got super big, broad shoulders. He's talking to a coach, hat on, head down. I'm like, man, that's a big lineman. That's got to be someone on the offensive line. I did like a double take and looked back at him. It was Ben Roethlisberger. So it's just like, it took me by surprise, how big these guys are. And, it was pretty neat to see him on my first day of work. Another really cool person I thought was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't know if too many people will agree with me, but I think they will, was Antonio Brown. Every single time that I was near him or had to be around him and a fan, his interactions with the Steelers fans were just one of a kind. He really set a good standard for how any player should talk to a fan. Like, he took extra time out of his day, pre-practice, post-practice. He was always the last person out signing autographs. He really cared a lot about the Steelers community. That's just something I don't think people give him too much credit for anymore. He was a really, really cool guy. One of the coolest things, they're one of the preseason games, I was escorting fans out to do the terrible towel before, everyone ran out. And Antonio Brown and Juju, they're all running routes, doing out routes. Antonio Brown makes this incredible catch on the sideline, toe taps during pregame, and then runs straight into a group of youth football players. And, all these football players, right? He didn't, wasn't trying to get him off of them, wasn't trying to do anything. He embraced it all. He just got them all hyped, and they circled around him. They're jumping up and down. It's just that extra minute of time that he spent with those kids was really, really cool.
Have you got to interact with the running back Jalen Samuels?
Unfortunately, Brandon, I know you're a fan. It's just I haven't been able to talk to him or see him, but because also when we do get close to these players, we are told to act as professional as possible. So if I did get to see Jalen, or when I did get to walk past Jalen, it was either like a head nod or like a hello, but nothing more than that. He's a really good running back.
Can you talk about, of course, the pregame, post-game, after the game, signing autographs, what that is like?
Yeah, so it's all game days. It's all upon players' discretion if they want to be out there or not. I can really talk about training camp and what it was like, because that was a big opportunity for autographs. So we would be called down to the field. Just certain members of the brand ambassadors, mainly the ones that were, operating at the highest level or doing their job the best, would be called down to help escort these players around to fans. And it was just all up to them how long they wanted to stay out, who they wanted to talk to, and, so-and-so. But the Steelers, the players do a great job of letting the fans know that they care about them as well. So I would say after practice, guys would be out an hour, 2 hours, just signing autographs. The last people to leave the field were always Antonio Brown, Juju Smith, and Ben Roethlisberger. That was for sure. Oh, Joe Hayden too. He's a big fan guy. Joe Hayden loves the fans. So yeah, it was really fun, but we would just escort them, not be in their space, but make sure fans weren't in their space, keeping everything cordial and cool.
As a brand ambassador, with legends and Hall of Famers coming back to Heinz Field, did you have any interactions with any legends or Hall of Famers?
Yeah. So who am I thinking of right now? Manuel? No. Oh gosh, this is my Chicago speaking right now. I'm number 10. I can't think of his name. Santonio Holmes.
Yes, Santonio Holmes.
Yep. So he would come to training camp once a year and do like a photo op with a bunch of fans for about 2.5, 3 hours. He was a super nice guy, super friendly to all the Steelers, workers and employees. Just always had a smile on his face and really engaging with the fans. So, and there's legends that walk up and down training camp and during game days that I'd have to interact with. But again, just trying to keep that professional level of service was my goal. And if I had to interact with any legends or Hall of Famers, it was always just like, you're a person, I'm a person, and we're just helping each other out. So everyone was super nice as the Steelers, their alumni is what I'll call them, where they're always super gracious to be back and really easy to work with.
What is the process like for my listeners that don't know? The process of being a brand ambassador for an NFL team like the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, I will say that the brand ambassadorship of the Pittsburgh Steelers is very unique to that team. I'm not sure if any or if many teams do a marketing ambassadorship like this for college students, but the process of acquiring this job was just like any other. Write a cover letter, submit your resume, and then I went into a 2-part interview process with my soon or later boss, Jonathan Mancuso. He's a really nice man. But they would bring you in, you'd have to dress professionally, walk right into Heinz Field, meet up in a big boardroom, go through a bunch of questions. The questions were actually really unique. I remember my first interview question with my boss was, if you were a food, what food would you be? So, something just like these that would throw you for a loop, but, you had to be ready for a good answer. But yeah, just like any professional job, it took a strong cover letter and a good resume for me to get my foot in the door.
What advice would you have upcoming future brand ambassadors looking to be on the NFL level?
My advice to any future brand ambassadors is, again, just check yourself with the service that you're providing, because that's the main goal, is to create a super memorable experience for the fans. That's what you're doing as being an ambassador of the Steelers brand. You have to represent them at the highest level. And yeah, that's all I would say, is just make sure that every interaction, no matter if the fan is disgruntled or maybe you don't speak the same language, or someone that might be frantic, it really matters. So just smile on your face, see if you can solve their problem. And if you can't, find the closest person who can. So that's the advice. And just work hard, do anything and do more that you're asked to do. So the setup and tear down of a brand ambassador's job, setting up, the tents, and like we had this guy at training camp. He's called Tiny. He's a 80-foot tall. Actually, no, he's a 30. Is he 30 feet tall? I think he's 30-foot tall, inflatable football player. And just getting him set up can make you sweat. So just having the work ethic of, setting up and tearing stuff down, being able to, lift heavy things around and just doing whatever's asked to you and beyond is what I would say is a tip.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
So if you wanted to find me on social media, my Instagram is clay_Paysen _41, or no, not dot, sorry, C Paysen _41. And then my Twitter is CPLax41. And my LinkedIn is just my name, Clayton Paysen. So if you'd like to figure more about me or reach out to me, you totally can.
Thank you again, Clay Paysen, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Clay Paysen, for your interview, and best of luck.
Awesome. Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.